After being raised in a poverty-stricken region, a financially struggling household that was located in a town that was bombed into darkness, Nikola Jokic has one of the most inspirational and unique childhood come-up stories in NBA history. The odds of Nikola Jokic making it to the NBA were 1 in a trillion, but he was able to make it out of a war-ridden town to eventually chase his 3rd MVP. Nikola was born on February 19, 1995 in Sombor, Serbia. He was the youngest of 3 brothers who grew up in a tiny house with all 3 siblings, his mom, his father, and his grandma, and made do with what little they had and what little space they had available. Nikola's father worked in the farming industry as an agricultural engineer and supported his family financially single-handedly. Naturally, living in the countryside and not having much space inside the home, Nikola and his brothers spent most of their time outdoors. Granted, there's nothing wrong with kids playing outside all day. Kids today in the States on average probably don't do it enough and stay glued on their screens. Nikola enjoyed playing all the same outdoor games we all grew up with, but unlike many of our childhood experiences, playing outside quickly became a hazard, being vulnerable to bombing. In 1999, Serbia's tensions peaked with NATO, and the consequences became deadly for Serbians. For months in 1999, Serbia, and even specifically Sombor, where Nikola was born and raised, was under attack by NATO and endured an onslaught of airstrikes. The aftermath was significant. Hospitals, radio and television headquarters, power plants, and even more were left in dust and rubble. The airstrikes caused an electrical power outage that left the people of Sombor, Serbia left in darkness for weeks in many areas after the electrical power system of Serbia completely collapsed. Nikola was only 4 at the time, with some of his earliest memories including the aftermath of war and violence. A lot of Serbians immigrated to other nations to seek and start a new and better life afterwards, but the Jokic family stayed put. Being a proud household, they weren't going to be bullied out of their hometown. Life went on for the Jokic family, and for Nikola, things started to look up for him at a young age. Both Nikola's brothers were absolute savages. They used to ruthlessly bully and borderline or straight up abuse Nikola, depending on how you're going to view this one. The brothers once went as far as to hold down Nikola by his arms to throw knives around his head for the sport of it. One little slip up and we probably don't have Jokic in the NBA. But his brothers perhaps gave him the biggest blessing of his life, basketball. After seeing just how good at basketball his first 2 sons were, Nikola's dad was sold that his youngest boy would be able to hoop. He was on track to be as tall as his brothers, if not the tallest in the family. His pops and his brothers were pumped to see Nikola hoop. The feeling wasn't mutual though. Nikola hated the idea of playing organized basketball at first. He wanted nothing to do with it. He actually cried when his father forced him to play basketball for the very first time. This is the same guy that nearly broke Markieff Morris's back on the court during an altercation. Also the same guy that is likely to win his 3rd MVP award. He wasn't known for his toughness and skill on the court back then, but it didn't take him long for him to figure it out. He was born to play basketball. Soon enough, Nikola was dominating his classmates and quickly made a name for himself in his hometown. He was locked in on basketball. There was nothing that could get in between him and his game, except horses. Nikola's first love before basketball was horses. My guy grew up on the countryside. There's not a whole lot to do out there when you live on a farm, but riding horses was one of the hobbies he could always turn to. The Joker was obsessed with horses and practiced enough to be able to compete at 14. Jokic was having the time of his life, but I can't say the same for those horses. Jokic was severely overweight as a kid, a battle he faced throughout his entire childhood. Drinking 3 liters of Coca-Cola per day did not help, plus the Serbian meat and potato pies he'd have daily. Racking up an estimated 2,500 to 3,000 calories per day pounding Cokes and meat pies alone. At one point, Jokic's weight almost kept him from having a professional basketball career. Misko Raznadovic, owner of the prominent Serbian basketball club Mega, discovered Jokic by accident. He was reading the morning paper when he saw that a local hooper playing in the juniors league dropped a 2020 game that he never knew about. Mega is a basketball club that is known for being the European Kentucky. Their mission is to find the best future basketball players in Europe, sign them, and sell their contracts to bigger leagues like the NBA. This club team prioritizes their business of selling player contracts more than they do winning championships, and it's no secret. Normally, Misko would have known of a talent like Nikola Jokic well by now. However, despite the crazy numbers Jokic was putting up in the junior games, he didn't get any respect because of how overweight he was. He wasn't even ranked among the top 100 junior basketball players in Serbia because the scouts thought his weight would hold him back once he reached the next level. Misko didn't hesitate to get the wheels in motion to bring in Nikola once he discovered him, but Nikola was not going to celebrate this win just yet. After Jokic was already one of, if not the best basketball player on the roster once he joined Mega, he wasn't going to get any playing time anytime soon after he joined the club. They sat Jokic every single game for months and didn't allow him to play a single minute. Instead, they forced him into the weight room to get in shape for months until he showed enough improvement to earn minutes on the floor. Once Jokic slimmed down, some of the rest was basically history. He was able to write his ticket to the NBA once he was able to show off his true potential. Nikola Jokic became Serbia's first hope to have an NBA star to call their own since Darko Milicic, who was very familiar with the Jokic family. Fortunately for Nikola, Darko, who's good friends with Nikola's brothers, offered some very valuable unsolicited advice. Back in 2003, when Darko was a top NBA prospect, one that many scouts even put in the same tier as LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony, he was enjoying the fruits of his labor before he actually got to business in the NBA. Darko celebrated simply being a prospect and draft pick a bit too much and said he partied and drank his way out of the NBA before he realized he was throwing away an opportunity of 1 trillion lifetimes. He told Nikola about his past to ensure Nikola would not follow in the same footsteps. Fortunately for Nikola, again, he was never that type of person to begin with. The kid valued his sleep too much for partying, so much so that he even slept through his NBA draft, including the moment he was drafted. It's all good though, all he missed on television was a Taco Bell ad instead of the commissioner calling his name after he was drafted in the second round at 5 a.m. Serbian time. One of his brothers gave him a call that was in New York City, popping bottles, celebrating while his little brother was being drafted. Nikola appreciated the ring and proceeded to pass out again after the call. Of course, coming from poverty in a town that suffered from harsh war conditions, a tranquil place that one day became a battle zone, Nikola was simply proud of how far he had come, but equally as motivated to make a special name for himself. Today, he's at the top of the race to win his 3rd straight MVP, and his team is the 1st seed in the Western Conference. At 28 years old, the Joker's basketball resume is just getting started. I'm James, and I hope you enjoyed Storytime. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to tune into weekly stories about your favorite athletes that you want to hear but never knew.